So, Jonathan, so Mark Robins was removed from his duties this season. What was your first gut reaction when it happened?
My first reaction was that it was harsh, because Mark had done, I think, one of the great jobs of English football, actually unsung jobs, in terms of, piloting Coventry through really difficult times, rebuilding the club without much resources, navigating the issues with fans, ownership, and had done it in his inimitable, sort of rational, calm, down-to-earth way. So I think the job he'd done was not just a coaching job in terms of building constructing over a period of time a really decent team that really should have been in the FA Cup final last year, but also in terms of managing the whole club, managing a fan base, managing a community. He'd done that kind of job. There's something old school about Mark Robins, and I think he managed in that old school sort of Fergie way, and that's what I saw at Coventry. And when he went, it seemed it was scant reward for all that he'd put into the club. And my thought was Coventry are going to struggle now without him.
Yeah. So you say he didn't really get his just deserved, did he, for his time at the club, for the 7 years he put into the club?
I didn't think so. I mean, what's happened since will put a different spin on it. But if you're asking the reaction at the time,
yeah,
I guess I've been covering football for 20 odd years now. It's a cruel game. It's a cruel game on managers. And that was my thought. It was like another good man has been sort of like eaten up by a club that he'd given so much for.
Certainly, as a fan of the club, I could have that exact opinion. But that leads me on to my next question. In other cases of iconic figures leaving clubs, like you said, Fergie and Arsene Wenger at Arsenal, how have clubs gone on to deal with these challenges then? How, say, Man United and Arsenal, and how would you think Cov have dealt with these challenges so far?
Yeah, I mean, most times clubs deal very badly, don't they? They try and replace the irreplaceable. They tend to try and look for somebody who they think is exactly like the person that they're losing. So in the case of Man United, they appoint a really good manager, by the way, in David Moyes.
Yeah.
But a guy that, they're clearly looking at the Fergie template, Scottish, a bit of a sort of tough manager at times, brought up in sort of all the sort of Scottish coaching beliefs and all that kind of thing. And actually, he turned out to be, I suppose, everyone is a slightly lesser version of Fergie, and he turned out to be a lesser version of Fergie. Same with Arsenal, when they, having moved on from Wenger, they go for a guy who's like, right, well, Wenger was this great sort of up-and-coming foreign coach, who'd maybe been slightly at smaller clubs. We'll do the same, so we'll get Unai Emery, who's not, and again, it didn't quite work. I think you're actually better going for almost ignoring the part who you're losing.
Yeah.
Just going for who's the best person right now. And actually, we've seen an outstanding example of good practice from Liverpool this year, where in losing Klopp, they haven't gone to try and get another German coach. They haven't gone to try and find someone with Klopp's personality, because that's impossible.
Exactly.
What they did was they used analysis a lot, and they just looked at style of play, squad profile, who's the best manager for now, and have done an outstanding job in getting someone who's different to Klopp, but actually brilliant in a different way. And that's what you need to do as a club.
Would you say Doug King and the Coventry ownership has done that job well then? Would you say Lampard's different to Mark Robins?
Yeah, I would. So that leads me on. I would say so far, and we have to be clear that it is still early.
Yeah.
The season's not finished. And I'll give you one other thing, which is somebody told me in football once that when a new manager arrives, ignore the first 6 months, because what they meant by that was, for that first 6 months, the new coach gets the benefit of what the guys left behind. And in some ways, it's still the old manager's team, but with the new coaches kind of little additions, and then you get the new manager bounce because everyone's trying their hardest because they're working for a new guy, but you still get the benefits of the old team. And maybe a good example of that would be Roberto Martinez when he took over at Everton. For 6 months, it was sensational because they had David Moyes' defensive and organisational and character kind of profile, but he added some attacking to it.
Yeah.
So far, I think what you've seen with Frank Lampard is he's inherited a really well-built squad club in terms of, it's been well coached by Mark Robins, good characters, good culture, and he's added his sort of more attacking football ideas, his big time I'm Frank Lampard mentality, and it's a really good mix at the moment. And I think right here, right now, you have to give Doug King a lot of credit because he hasn't gone for another Mark Robins. He's gone for somebody from off a different shelf, and he's done it at a moment where maybe what Cov needed in hindsight was having kind of been close to making the breakthrough, as in being close to promotion, being close to the FA Cup final. He needed somebody who had been at that level recently, because Mark Robins was in the distant past, but maybe somebody with that bigger ambition to cut just that different chemistry. So far it looks like a really good mix, and what Frank Lampard's done is the opposite to what I expected. All credit to Frank Lampard. It's been a sensational season so far for him.
As you say, so far, and I think he's actually, as a fan of myself and speaking to other fans, he's really just gone past all expectations when we first, like when the names first, obviously it was Van Nistelrooy and Frank Lampard. I was not to be too skeptical anyway myself, because you can't be, because it's football. They're there for a reason, but the fans were not happy about Lampard or Ruud. So what did you see of the fan reaction from the Cov fans when he first came into now? Do you think it's changed, hasn't it? A lot.
Yeah.
How do you think it's changed?
Yeah, no, I understood it because they were suspicious, because we've seen clubs in that position before going for something glamour. Let's go for glamour. And I suppose an example might be Birmingham and Wayne Rooney. And sometimes it just doesn't fit. It just doesn't work. And then you think the owner's just been sort of seduced by star power, as it were. And I think Cov fans have quite long suffering. I'm sure you'll agree. Maybe rightly kind of suspicious that this is yet another false dawn for the club. But in fairness, the ownership, and I having given Mark Robins credit, you have to give Doug King credit for the not just disappointment, but he played a huge part in building the club as well. He is a good owner. He's been a good owner. So it just looks like I understood that reaction, and of course I can see that it's changed. But we're football fans, aren't we? Results change everything for us.
And so Lampard obviously came in and he had big shoes to fill. How do you think he's done while going about what he's done then? Like, because he didn't come in straight away and talk too much to the talk. I think he was pretty honest about what he wanted to be. But I think it was 4 months. He's been 4 or 5 months in charge now. What do you think he's done really well, just for his own image?
This aspect doesn't surprise me, because I do know Frank a little bit, having not well, but I've dealt with him as a journalist, spoken to him, and actually, despite having this incredible, stellar playing career, he's not a big ego. He is kind of down to earth. He is a guy that I think you can see he's come from real football roots, as it were. His West Ham background, but also being a kid that was, that whole fat Frank Lampard thing when he was a player. He was seen as the chubby kid who wasn't going to be a star, and he had worked in the local park with his dad. He brings all that. So what he's done well at Cov is he's connected, I think, with the fan base and the club really well. Despite being a star, he hasn't acted the star. He has actually been very down to earth and connected with people and been really, very realistic. And then you remind yourself, and this is where the credit to Doug King and the cleverness of the club comes in. You actually remind yourself, wait a minute, he's been in the Championship before at a similar club and did really well there. So that's what they've looked at, as much as anything. And that's what's really clever about its appointment. And I think there's been a similar job so far that he did at Derby, and fair play to him. And
finally then, so Lampard's managerial career has been inconsistent so far, you could say. This job at Coventry, is this bigger for him or bigger for Coventry as a club?
Oh, it's a great question, because it is big for both, but I think it's bigger for him, because Cov will still be Cov, right? And I wouldn't say you might know differently, but I don't think you're a supporter base with unrealistic expectations. I think if it doesn't work out with Frank, you move on to the next thing, and the club's still the club. But I think for him, this job has to work, or maybe that's his managerial ambitions over and done with. So it's huge for him. His career has been up and down, but then there's such a gulf between Premier League and Championship that if you look at it, where he's struggled has been, and he's managed in the Champions League. It's been at the top end, and to be successful at that top end, you're talking about having to be Pep Guardiola or Arne Slot or these guys, and you see the top foreign coaches coming in like Erik ten Hag and not being able, Unai Emery not being able to quite make an impression at the big clubs. So that's actually where Frank's not succeeded. But he's young in his coaching career. So if Cov does work for him, and he, the best thing for him would be to take Coventry up, to do well in the Premier League for a couple of years, and then he maybe rekindles his ambitions to be a Chelsea manager again for a third time, or whatever it is, which he will still have those ambitions. But and if it doesn't go right, then I don't know where it leaves him. But so far, and I'm pleased for him, he's really grabbed the chance. Yeah.
I think he's only so far he's only done himself lots of favours. The way he speaks, the way he acts, and I mean the football is improved and the position's improved. So it speaks for itself.
He plays good football. He plays good football, and he communicates brilliantly. Yeah. And those are two fantastic assets for a manager, because those two things actually help you when results aren't going. He's not only speaking through results, is what I'm saying. No, he speaks really well to the media and thereby to supporters, and he speaks through his football, which is good to watch.
And I think that's really helped him just connect with the fans so quickly. Yeah, and I'll have one more question actually for you. Sorry, because
cool.
Because it leads on to where you said Coventry fans are suspicious. We are very suspicious, and there a lot of fans I've been speaking to were suspicious maybe about Frank Lampard. Do you reckon he might be in it for the long run, or maybe if he gets if we get promoted or go even to the playoffs this season, don't go up, there'll be clubs after him most likely.
Yeah.
Do you think he's the kind of guy to instantly jump, or?
Oh, I don't think he's. Look, it depends what the job is. Yeah. I do think there will be some loyalty from him. I do think maybe he will have learnt from going. I wouldn't say he jumped too soon to Chelsea, because I think when you're offered that job, you kind of have to take it.
Yeah.
But ideally, it wasn't the best thing for him. It didn't give him enough time to learn his trade, and I think he's a very intelligent guy, Frank. So he'll know, I think, that the best thing for his development would be to try and build something over a few years at Cov and then think about the big job again. But I mean, you talk about being in for the long term. I think I'm right in that the average tenure of a manager in the Championship is about 18 months.
Okay, so
okay,
thanks,
yeah.
Right, thank you.
Good.
Thank you for your help. And if you want to, once it's all finished, if you want me to send it over to you at all or anything, I can send you the document. It's only like a 35-minute documentary.